Yeah.
Would you like a slice? I can put butter and jelly on it.
For 12 straight years, 2.5 Men was the hottest show on American television.
You know, I've always wanted to play the piano. Do you think you could teach me something?
Until it was killed by hidden drama and personal feuds behind the scenes. How did the show experience such a drastic fall from grace? And most importantly, why did the producers decide to kill their most important character in such a gruesome manner? To understand the controversial scene that ended 2.5 Men, we must go back to the genesis of 2.5 Men. September 22nd, 2003. That was the first time 2.5 Men aired on CBS. 12 seasons and 262 episodes later, and the show became one of the most successful sitcoms in television history. Created by legendary TV producers Chuck Lorre and Lee Aronson, the series initially revolved around the lives of the Harper brothers. Charlie, played by Charlie Sheen, and Alan, played by Angus T. Jones. Charlie, the main star of the show, is a bachelor who writes commercial jingles for a living and was pretty successful. The show also featured other superstars like John Cryer, Conchata Ferrell, and Jenny McCarthy, to mention a few. Throughout its run, 2.5 Men was loved by both fans and critics, and over the years has become known as one of America's most successful comedy shows. Not only was the show successful, though, but its popularity created a template for other shows, including The Big Bang Theory, Mike and Molly, and Mom. Speaking of success, 2.5 Men took home dozens of nominations and awards in its glory days. We're talking 46 Primetime Emmy Awards, of which it won 9. 2 Golden Globe Awards nomination bagged by Charlie Sheen, and even winning the award for Favorite TV Comedy at the 35th People's Choice Awards. But despite being one of the most beloved shows to ever air on American television, 2.5 Men was never free from controversies, most of which revolved around Charlie Sheen's personal life. The first time Charlie Sheen overdosed on drugs was on May 20th, 1998. 5 years before he ever appeared on 2.5 Men, the actor was found unconscious in his seaside home after his cocaine addiction almost took his life. Thankfully, he was able to receive quick medical attention at the Los Robles Hospital and Medical Center in Thousand Oaks, California, saving him from untimely death. Few days after he was brought back to life, Sheen checked himself into a rehab clinic. However, for the next few years of his life, Sheen continued to struggle with drug addiction, going in and out of rehab, and coming close to losing his life a couple of times. When the opportunity to star in 2.5 Men came knocking, Sheen grabbed it with both hands. Although he was already a big name in Hollywood at this point, this was his chance to become an icon. Unfortunately, his drug abuse would later become a major problem, affecting not only his reputation, but the show's success as well. While the on-screen Charlie was loved by millions of people across America and seemed to have a near-perfect life, the same could not be said for the real Charlie. His life was a mess behind the scenes, and the more money he got, the more he pumped into his drug addiction. On the outside, though, Sheen seemed like he had a happy life. His show was making waves, winning awards, and he had slowly become a household name. Unfortunately, this dark and unknown aspect of his life would soon cost him his entire career. Not only was Sheen addicted to drugs, apparently, he was also physically abusive. That aspect of his life came to light on Christmas Day, 2009, when the cops arrested him for assaulting Brooke Muller, his wife at the time. After posting an $8,500 bond, he was released from jail that same day. But the scandal didn't end there. Sheen was later charged with felony menacing, third-degree assault, and criminal mischief. Then, in August 2010, Sheen pleaded guilty to misdemeanor assault as part of a plea deal, while the rest of the charges were dismissed. By the time the trial ended, the actor was sentenced to 30 days in a rehab center, 30 days of probation, and 36 hours of anger management. Going through such a public legal case quickly ruined Sheen's reputation and slowly began affecting the show itself. Since Sheen had to go to rehab, production had to be halted, putting everyone working on the show out of a job. However, it didn't take long for Sheen to get arrested again. It all began on October 26, 2010, when workers at the Plaza Hotel called the police on Sheen, after he reportedly caused over $7,000 in damages. After he was taken into custody by the NYPD, Sheen admitted that he'd been drinking and using cocaine the night of the incident. Again, he had to go to rehab, forcing production of 2.5 Men to shut down. Even after he came back, Sheen was never free from scandals. However, none of his past actions could hold a candle to Corey Feldman's allegation. When news came out that Charlie Sheen had allegedly forced himself on Corey Haim, a lot of people didn't believe it. Even Sheen denied it, and would later sue the National Enquirer for publishing the story. But that didn't stop the rumors from spreading, further damaging his reputation. Haim was 13 when he and Sheen appeared in the movie Lucas together back in 1986. It took about 2 decades before he came out to tell this story, but unfortunately, he never really got justice. Sure, the case was settled in 2018, but Haim's mother, Judy, has insisted it was another actor who took advantage of his son. According to her, Sheen was being attacked for a made-up story. However, in March 2020, actor Corey Feldman released a documentary where he insisted that Sheen was guilty. The story was also corroborated by Feldman's ex-wife, Susie Feldman, as well as Jamison Newlander. Despite the renewed allegations, though, Sheen maintained his innocence, claiming that the accusations against him were sick, twisted, and outlandish. Whether the story was true or not, Sheen's public image took massive hits already, and by extension, 2.5 Men. Remember how Sheen struggled with anger issues? Well, that was what eventually led to his downfall, as he would soon get into a bitter feud with the last person anyone expected him to pick a fight with: Charlie versus Chuck Lorre. By 2011, 2.5 Men was already a sitcom phenomenon. With an average audience of between 13 to 15 million viewers per episode, the first 10 seasons were what you would call a smash hit. With Charlie Sheen at the forefront of this success story, it only made sense for him to become the highest-paid actor on television. So for every episode, Sheen took home $2 million. However, with his private life in jeopardy, his time on the show also began counting down. In both 2010 and 2011, Chuck Lorre, the show's creator, was forced to shut down the set since the lead actor was either in jail, on probation, or in court trying to settle a domestic violence case. But it wasn't until February 2011 before Sheen would pull the last straw. While appearing in a series of interviews, Sheen directed his anger towards Chuck Lorre, threatening him, calling him a maggot and a loser, as well as other vulgar names. It was so bad that CBS had to completely shut the show down, affecting around 200 employees and costing the investors $10 million. But while Charlie thought he was winning this fight, Lorre decided to pull the last card in March 2011. Out of nowhere, CBS suddenly announced the termination of Sheen's contract, cutting him out of a show that paid him around $100 million per season. Of course, the actor wasn't just going to take it, so he embarked on a media tour, launching verbal attacks against the show's creator and even Warner Brothers. He even took it as far as filing a lawsuit against Lorre and Warner Bros. Television, seeking over $100 million in punitive damages. But it wasn't just his public statements against Lorre that eventually cost him his job. Remember how Sheen kept going in and out of rehab? Well, it was during one of these episodes that the decision was made. While he believed his job would be waiting for him whenever he came back, Lorre and CBS had had enough of his shenanigans, so they decided to show him the door. Officially, Warner Bros. Claims that Sheen was fired for engaging in dangerously self-destructive conduct. Apparently, he was having difficulty remembering his lines, couldn't work with the people on set, and had destroyed a couple of important working relationships. Sheen wasn't about to go quietly, though. As soon as he was fired, he decided to start a webcast called Sheen's Corner, where he openly talked about whatever was on his mind. He also sent a few threats to Lorre, claiming that he'd picked a fight with a warlock. However, these rants did nothing to help his financial troubles. Most people don't know this, but even after Sheen was fired from 2.5 Men, he still received huge royalties from the show, $100 million to be precise. However, the paycheck stopped coming in 2016 after the actor sold his participation rights for $27 million. Apparently, the reason he did this was so he could lower his child support payments. Unfortunately, selling his rights meant that his monthly income went from $600,000 to $167. But despite how much he'd made and was making at the time, Sheen was still neck-deep in debt, like $12 million deep. Since then, his net worth has continued to drop, and as of 2022, he had only about $12 million to his name. But for Lore and CBS Studios, the show had to go on. With Sheen out of the picture, the studio decided to step into the Kutcher era. With Sheen's character dead, the network began searching for the next big name to carry on the legacy of the show. Enter Ashton Kutcher, another highly successful movie star with an impressive resume. The idea wasn't to recast Sheen's character, though. Instead, Lore decided to create a new lead character for the new cast. For Kutcher, though, getting a role in 2.5 Men wasn't exactly an upgrade. With several successful movies under his belt, it was quite strange that he would choose to star in a sitcom. But with Kutcher, it was all about the paycheck. Considering how Sheen was getting paid $1.8 million an episode, Kutcher believed he could manage to squeeze out as much money from the network as well. In addition, he was also informed that the network planned to extend the show's lifespan for another 4 seasons, which meant he would be getting constant paychecks for the next 4 years. However, because Kutcher didn't have the kind of star power Sheen controlled, he ended up getting $700,000 for every episode, which doesn't seem like a bad deal. However, Kutcher wasn't exactly the studio's first option. Initially, they'd tried to get Hugh Grant to join the show, but after negotiations fell through, CBS had to quickly find someone else on short notice. It was either this or the show would shut down for good, and since Laura believed he still had more good stories to tell, he decided to go with the Kutcher option. As soon as the announcement was made, Sheen didn't waste time before welcoming his replacement to the show, although he managed to throw a jibe at him at the same time. While he praised Kutcher's acting and comedic skills, Sheen predicted that the show would only get half the rating it used to, now that he was out of the picture. Was he right, though? Everyone was just about to find out. Sheen didn't stop there, though. While speaking to TMZ about Kutcher taking his spot, Sheen stated, "I'm tired of lying. I'm tired of pretending the show doesn't suck. I'm tired of pretending Ashton doesn't suck. It's nothing personal. I just feel bad for him. He has to carry bad scripts." He would then continue trolling Kutcher all over social media, especially Twitter. It wasn't until 2014 before Kutcher finally spoke up about the constant attack. While appearing on Jimmy Kimmel's show, Kutcher exploded, saying, "Enough is enough. It's been 3 years, and you're still trolling me on Twitter." But did Sheen stop? Not really. However, Kutcher, who's known to always avoid controversies, never spoke publicly about the situation since then. The only problem was that his character didn't exactly do well on the show. Even though he did his best to fit into the newly introduced character, the show wasn't really the same without Sheen. Ratings continued to drop, people started losing interest, and the show itself started to lose its soul. As a way of remedying the situation, the producers not to totally kill off Sheen's character, leading to the reincarnation of Charlie Harper. With Charlie Sheen out of the show, it was obvious that 2.5 Men was on its way out. But before airing the controversial episode that ended 2.5 Men, Lore decided to bring back Charlie Harper's character without actually bringing back the actor. To kill off the character in the first place, the show started its 9th season with the plot that Harper had died in Paris. Apparently, he was struck by a train and exploded like a balloon full of meat. The first episode in the season started with Charlie's funeral, with his trademark bowling shirts and cargo shorts hanging on the closed casket. After the funeral, Charlie was frequently mentioned by his loved ones, as some unknown details about his life began to emerge. So even though he wasn't exactly on the screen, he was still in the show. However, it wasn't until the episode Why We Gave Up on Women before Charlie was finally reintroduced, this time portrayed by Kathy Bates. In the episode, Alan wakes up from a mild heart attack, only to find a strange woman sitting at the foot of his bed, dressed like Charlie and smoking a cigar. She introduced herself as Charlie, claiming that he'd ended up in hell, and part of his punishment was that he now had to live eternity in the body of a large, older woman with a pair of testicles. The initial plan was for Bates to appear in just one episode as an ode to Charlie's character. However, Lore was so impressed by Bates's performance that they decided to bring her back as Alan's demonic spirit guide. As for Charlie, he would later be killed off officially in the final episode of the show, which would later become known as the controversial scene that ended 2.5 Men. The episode starts with Alan Harper receiving a letter that his brother Charlene had $2.5 million in unclaimed royalties. However, he needed Charlie's death certificate to claim the money. This was when he realized that Rose had provided no proof that Charlie was dead. Shortly after receiving this letter, an unknown person suddenly claimed the money, and everyone began to suspect that maybe Charlie didn't die after all. However, Alan and his mother also began receiving threatening letters, while several women in Charlie's life received checks of up to $10,000, along with an apology letter. Later in the episode, Rose confessed that Charlie was actually alive and had been locked in her basement for months. Several scenes later, Charlie finally appears on the screen for the first time in the season, although only his back was shown. He walks up to the front door and rings the bell, but before anyone answers, Charlie is crushed to death by a piano falling from the sky. The fourth wall was then broken, as the camera pans to the set where Chuck Lorre was sitting in the director's chair. The final moments showed Lorre saying the word "winning" as a second grand piano falls on Charlie. This ending was so symbolic, not just because Charlie was brought back, but also because it tapped into the off-screen drama surrounding the show. It was like a representation of Lorre crushing his arch-nemesis, Charlie. But was that the initial plan for the show's finale? Not really. You see, before the finale ever aired, fans had been talking about the possibility of bringing Charlie Sheen back for a special appearance. CBS even announced they were bringing a guest for this final episode, but didn't mention who it was. Those who believed it would be Sheen. While speaking to the press in January 2015, Chuck Lorre spoke about the show, praising Sheen for his extraordinary contributions. Despite their differences, Lorre stated that the success recorded on 2.5 Men would have been impossible without him. When asked how the show would end, Lorre stated that he wanted the finale to honor both eras of the show. The biggest secret of this final episode was later revealed in the vanity card. Apparently, Sheen was offered a cameo where he would walk up to the door of the beach house and recite a rant about the dangers of drug use before claiming that he couldn't be killed. It was at that moment that a piano would then fall on Charlie, killing him instantly. However, Sheen declined. 1, because he didn't find it funny, and 2, because he wanted to return in a new sitcom known as The Harpers. However, the studio wasn't willing to reprise the character in an entirely new show, so they filmed the final episode with a stand-in instead. Sheen, on the other hand, didn't find the episode funny. Reacting to the episode, Sheen addressed Lorre saying, "That's just him. I don't care anymore. I don't care if he lives or dies. Seriously, it doesn't matter. To go that low and be that immature and that completely unevolved and that stupid? In my face, really. You must feel safe, motherfucker. You must feel safe where you live. Damn!" The episode ended up becoming one of the most memorable parts of the show, despite the controversy attached. However, as wild as Sheen was, he wasn't the only cast member with a history of scandal. Before we go on with the rest of the video, here's our subscribers' pick for today. As we explore the controversial scene that ended 2.5 Men, it's also important to talk about the sexual innuendo that was a major part of the show. Sure, the show had a lot of hilarious moments, crazy plot twists, and everything that makes a show successful, but one major criticism was directed at the fact that the show may have been over-sexualized. This was also one of the reasons why one of the cast members later came out to diss the show, publicly asking people to boycott it. Do you think the criticism was valid? Or 2.5 Men contained as much sexual content as other shows of its time? Share your thoughts with us in the comments below. Now, let's get back to the video. Angus T. Jones. Less than 2 years after Charlie Sheen was removed from 2.5 Men, another young star also went on a rampage, asking fans to stop watching the show. Angus T. Jones was still quite young when he started appearing on the show. As a child actor, he was making over $350,000 for every episode, making him one of the highest-paid child actors of his generation. However, as he grew older, he also started having issues with some of the scenes in the show. Because of his Christian beliefs, Angus began to pull away from the show little by little. But it wasn't until 2012 before the whole thing would come to a head. In November of 2012, the then 19-year-old appeared on a 14-minute clip posted on YouTube by the Forerunner 777. During the video, Angus stated, "If you watch 2.5 Men, I'm on 2.5 Men and I don't want to be on it. Please stop watching it. Please stop filling your head with filth. You cannot be a true God-fearing person and be on a television show like that. I know I can't." While he received support from a couple of people, the response to this video was mostly negative. Most people called him out for his hypocrisy, since he kept taking money from the show while bashing it online. Later, in an interview with People magazine in October 2016, Angus revealed that he was trying to take the attention away from him at the time. However, it's been many years since then, and Angus is almost unrecognizable now. He also appeared on the show's finale, which brought him fresh backlash from fans of the show. But since then, he has managed to stay out of the spotlight. Angus wasn't the only person who felt this way about the show. As a matter of fact, 2.5 Men was heavily criticized by a large portion of the public, especially with the first episode of the final season, the fake gay marriage controversy. In November 2014, 2.5 Men aired the first episode of its 12th and final season, and not a lot of people liked the plot. The episode starts with a gay wedding between the two leading heterosexual characters, Walden, played by Ashton Kutcher, and Alan, played by John Cryer. Apparently, the two had crafted this plan so they could adopt and raise a young boy after they realized how difficult it was to adopt a child as a single straight man. Not surprisingly, the episode attracted tons of backlash for trivializing the fight for marriage equality. Other critics also argued that the plot desexualized gay love. However, Laurie argued that the intention was never to be disrespectful. We all believe that people should have the freedom to marry who they love, but there is that wonderful wrinkle. It's a new era we're living in, and we got a chance to play with that, Laurie stated. But even with the controversy, the episode ended up attracting millions of viewers. While the show has been off the air for a couple of years now, new developments have emerged behind the scenes. For one, Lore and Sheen have finally squashed their beef after so long, bringing an end to one of the most intense off-screen fights in the history of American television. Thank you for watching. See you in the next one.